Thank you. Hello, everyone. I really hope you enjoy Vitalik's keynote. That is very tough act to follow. But I'm going to try. And today, we are going to be discussing the staking economy. And what do I mean by that? Now, I'm guessing that everyone who is here and is here in this conference understands that staking is blockchain security. It is the foundation of everything we are building here, and everything depends on this. And it's what makes it all just work. But there's another side to it. It is actually an economy. It has a different set of factors, solutions, goods and services, big players, small players. And we are going to be talking about all of that today. But first, of course, I need to make some introductions. My name is Gabriella. I do research and analysis for Ethereum at Course One. And Course One is a professional node operator that is here in Europe. And we provide infrastructure and staking solutions for many networks, including, and for me, most importantly, Ethereum. So in this presentation, what I'm going to try to do is follow like a linear timeline into staking with a focus on Ethereum, starting from the past, where it all began with proof of stake, present status, and a view towards the future. And when I think about Ethereum and the future of Ethereum, I don't think about it in terms of like just like the next days or the next years. I'm thinking about it in the term of all the decades to come. Now, the hard part isn't giving this talk. The hard part is making it last 15 minutes, so let's get right into it. First, I want to say that human economic relationships have been based in the same basic properties all throughout history. Guarantees and obligations underlying all exchanges of values. So, of course, this idea also applies to distributed systems and digital assets. And that's when we start with staking. Proof-of-stake systems require stakers to lock up their funds to participate in the consensus validation. It's a public service which allows them to earn rewards. And the idea of staking has been around at least since 2012, with early examples such as Peercoin. It was later popularized by the Tendermint white paper and, of course, the Ethereum proof-of-stake idea, which was already in the Ethereum white paper. But the reality is that proof-of-stake is growing very rapidly. Right now, it represents a combined market cap of $342 billion. And it was clear from the start that Ethereum would move to proof-of-stake. So obviously, users will want to stake and participate in securing this network. However, there were several problems to be addressed, like capital requirements, liquidity issues, and all the risks that comes up with locked stakes, no native redelegation models, things that could keep a very small validator set. And these were very big concerns at the time that people thought that the big centralized exchanges and players would capture most of the staking market by the time withdrawals actually happened. But there was something that ETH had that separated from others, and that's that they have separate validator key from withdrawal keys. So these actions could be performed by different parties, so that you needed, let's say, this trusted party who could be like a node operator. And back then, there was only one way of staking. It was native staking, either yourself or delegating these coins to the professional node operators. And there were some networks that had in-protocol delegation mechanisms that make it a little bit more like accessible to in-protocol staking without custody. But Ethereum chose like a different route. Like we all know, they launched the Bitcoin chain in parallel in 2020, which I see myself as some sort of like incentivized testnet that ran for a while. And the rest is history. Now, as infrastructure providers, we have been focused on having the least opinionated approach to running these networks and focus mostly on like our performance and delivering better services. However, there are some influence that we can have because we have to make some decisions. And we need to do that while remaining incredibly neutral. And that has worked so far, but there also weren't that many ways in which you could express your preference in the past. But now this is changing. Let's see the present state also of the Ethereum staking. Who are the players right now? When I look now, what are the differentiators or where the lines are drawn? Like we talked a little bit about native staking in comparison to like liquid staking, so let's go a little bit more in depth into this. And one thing that people realized in relation to the risk that I mentioned previously about staking was that you could create a system where you would receive what is called like a staking voucher that represents the ETH that is staked. And then you could be able to find someone who is in the market, let's say willing to buy it and so on. I say people, it wasn't just any people. Actually, liquid staking as a concept was first presented by Chorus One, by this guy, my coworker named Felix Lodge. He called it delegation vouchers, and later we presented like the whole design of liquid staking in this liquid staking report, all the way back in 2019, which was inspired by our work in the Ethereum in the Cosmos ecosystem at the time. And essentially, this representation of a position would function as a receipt for staked ETH. And you could use that, you could trade it in Uniswap, deposit it in Aave, Maker, whatever you wanted to do with that. But coming back to this, the other line that can be drawn between these different kinds of types of staking, let's say, is custodial versus non-custodial or self-custodial. And there's some overlap in here happening between like liquid staking, non-custodial, and native and custodial. But there's also some node operators like Chorus One that offer like native staking that is also non-custodial. And finally, there's another difference that exists between retail and institutional staking. And this is more related to which are the customer segments that you're trying to target and how best to serve those customers. And for example, there's a huge number of users which you can actually you can't reach if you don't have a custodian. And make staking very simple, like using the existing wallets, the exchanges, either because of convenience or because of compliance. Now, speaking as a solo staker myself, but also as a node operator, the staking rewards market is very volatile and kind of difficult to navigate. A lot of it also has to do with like the dependency of staking providers that they have on like the asset prices. So we think also how can we extract that and keep things going, whether it's ETH is like $100 or $10,000, crossing my fingers. Now, everyone sort of expected a significant increase in stake ETH as a result of the last upgrade, and with withdrawals finally being enabled. And that was certainly like the bet we were making at Chorus One. And we were right, with Ethereum significantly de-risked. Net staking inflows have definitely surged, as you can see, growing by over $10 million per day in some cases, and making this like the closest to a risk-free rate that you can have in crypto. But what happened is that now in a bear market, Ethereum is suffering a little bit from success. If the validator entry queue is perpetually at capacity, like for the next 9 months, you could see the size of the active validator, let's say active validator set, grow into like 2 million, and that's the second slide, like picture that you can see there. And that can have like very significant effects on the peer-to-peer layer that the protocol has. But yeah, those are some issues. But then, what is the composition of this stake? So the rated team estimated that 6.5% of people that are staking on like entities are like solo stakers that are on the set, which is great. Like most of the decisions that Ethereum has taken in the past has been in favor of this. So it's nice to see like, that exists some diverse and distributed set of validators that provide, let's say, a strong backbone to all the network as a whole. But the market structure is very dependent on liquid staking. Actually, if the demand of staking remains as high as it is right now, it is possible that at some point STETH flips ETH in the near future. And I don't know about you, but that's not the flipping that I was expecting. So let's talk a little bit about that thing that we're all thinking, okay? What is this LST market structure? Well, there's two very oppositional sides that exist. Let's say on one side, there's like institutional staking, and on the other side, there's self-stakers. And in the middle exists everyone else. And everyone else is staking with Lido. And there are strong, very strong network effects in liquid staking. And I think we've all seen like the return to scale that this brings. It has many reasons. One is the liquidity of a liquid staking token, which, not to be redundant, liquidity of liquid staking, but it's how useful this can be and how instant can you use it. The other one, I guess, is the obvious opportunity cost of staking. So from the perspective of the protocol that is creating that liquid staking token, you want to make it as useful as you can, and the more useful it is, the more people will use it, and then it is a chain effect. That is, in the end, the power, and I guess the biggest power that brand and trust has in staking, which is also part of why we find ourselves in this situation. Now the question is, does this result in a winner-takes-all market? Good question. What I'll say is this. To the degree that a token is used as money, it behaves as money. So it has the network's effects of money. In some networks where that doesn't happen, then this is not the case, and you don't see those effects. But ETH is actively used, and the network effects almost always win. Now, don't be afraid. The outcome might not be as centralized as you think, but it will be very concentrated for those reasons that I specified. But there's still like a big social layer to staking and in the Ethereum ecosystem that is always like there, whatever happens in that case. And I think for myself, it is very important that it remains a very distributed system and a very secure system. And for that to happen, I think one of the main things you need is the ossification of the layer below ETH to be able to unlock that ossification in the above level. Because if you don't have that, then it becomes very difficult to create products around staking. And that is something that we've seen at Course One. We have a product called Opus. And we got, well, that is like the present, but this is like the fun part. What is like the future of staking? Here's a few cool things, and we're getting to the end of this. But there are big three areas that I want to separate. Okay, so one of them, and all of this is what I would call like infrastructure level innovation that is happening in Ethereum when it comes to staking. Now, getting right to the big things, MEV. MEV is a design byproduct of block building, since like the correct blockchain doesn't have like rules that exist for the content and the ordering of the block. A lot of ink and a lot of minds have gone into this topic. Even in this conference, there are so many chats, so many talks that you can see. So I'm not going to explain like the supply chain economics or any of those models here. But as stakers, we can now take a more opinionated approach to MEV through MEV Boost, with things like relay selection, location, and more. And going deeper into this topic and optimizing it further makes sense as a node operator, which is what we tried to do at Course One, and I think we've been kind of successful so far, we can see here. And we will be actually republishing more on these results in our website kind of soon, so watch out for that. And maybe there's other ways to make yield more predictable in the future, like MEV Burn, but that's for other talks in the conference. And we have two other things that are the last things I'm going to mention, and rollups and DBT is one of them. I put these two together because they are scaling solutions to both sides of the stack, the consensus and the execution. And with DBT, we're looking to increase the staking setup with high availability without making any security compromises. That could lead to slashing, and you can only do that with DBT. We are very interested in the effect that things like OVL will have on performance, and also the effect it will have on the capital costs of running a node operation. And something that is called the lazy validator problem, which is why we're actually doing experiments on this on mainnet right now. We have a mainnet OVL node with other node operators. And yeah, that is other things that we're doing experiments with staking. And finally, saving the best for last, liquid staking innovation and risk-taking. For liquid staking, first we have this role of light operators, and we are very much looking forward to the staking router and what that can do for the modularity in staking. And then what they are trying to do is like moving from some node operators to hundreds of node operators, which will hopefully be a net positive for the network. And with risk-taking, this is a whole thing. I actually wrote a report or a piece in our quarterly report about this topic. It's called Expanding the Ethereum Staking Ecosystem. You should be able to download that from our website very soon. But in the staking world, rehypothecation turns the shape of risk-taking. And as we all know, ETH validators are a very valuable asset, and you can leverage that to perform other activities and be accountable through slashing. I guess to the degree that this helps compete on rewards, node operators will move there, as long as, I guess, the risk-reward matrix makes sense. And then stakers will also want to participate in that, and the protocol that uses staking will also do that and improve the differentiator, I guess, in the staking market. And the risk of this is what everyone is concerned about. I'm with you. I guess this is like another topic, but for me, there's two pressures going on in Ethereum. One of it is like the pressure to change and keep growing in innovation, and the other is the pressure to stay the same, I guess, to ossify this base layer. But yeah, that is like a different idea that I want to leave you with, but I think it's almost inevitable that we will see more liquidity markets built on top of it, different levels of risk-taking, leverage, and so on. That happens here. We all know what that could look like. But I think all in all these topics are testing the limits in regards to open innovation happening at the staking level in Ethereum. So yeah, those are the projects as they happen in parallel. And the interesting thing will be when all of these come together and how they're going to interact together. And when we will have to do upgrades on all of these simultaneously and how that will look like as node operators. I'm very interested. But yeah, in the end, the point is how do we align and how do we work together in sync as an economy does. And that is a staking economy. Now, to close here, I think we're seeing like this staking and this decentralized market happening in real time in front of our eyes. There is like all this open innovation that is happening in staking. Maybe some of you thought that staking was a very boring topic and nothing was happening there for a long time. Well, now a lot is happening, and we are very hopeful on what this can unlock. And well, we'll be heading into progress head on, I guess. And I hope like that the community can also solve all the puzzles that we still have in front of us. I have full trust on that. But yeah, I am fully on time. 15 minutes is not a lot, but yeah, that is kind of like my Telegram. And we are a course one. Get in touch, talk about staking. This is also us. So yeah, thank you very much.